What's up, NBA fan? What's up, all sports fans? This your boy JB, host of the Behind the Bench podcast network and channel. Giving a shout out to the rest of the crew: Shy, Kelvin, Jermaine, KB Film Room, Big Dog Talk Sports. That's right. That's right. For everyone who's tuning in, we hope that you support Behind the Bench, continue supporting Behind the Bench, and become a subscriber and help make this show the best that it can be. And we are in the heart of Black History Month as we continue to learn the contributions that many Black Americans have made to move society forward and make society more at ease, as I like to say. But check this out, man. I want to talk about, I know the NBA is hosting its All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis, and they have all these events, man. Three-point shooting contest, slam dunk contest. The All-Star game itself will take place on Sunday. But what's getting me, man, is like, look, when you start trying to rewrite history, distort history, well, what you're really doing is participating in the demise of the greatest, where you're undermining the history of the greatest basketball league we've ever seen. And the league was introduced back in 1946, right? And what I love, I would recommend any basketball fan. I know we are in the age of social media and instant access to information on, on the internet and whatnot. But I recommend every year the NBA released an updated version of, it was called the NBA Guide. And it was like a book that was updated every year that gave you precise, detailed information about every player in this league, every team in this league, and what the results were by season's end. And whoever was the champion, they would feature that organization's team photo, highlighting every player that's on the roster. And then the picture would feature the head coaches or whatnot, and assistant coaches. It was awesome, man. And it's called NBA Guide. It's called NBA Guide. And by reading those books every year, I truly became enamored, man, and became a lifelong follower of the NBA, the National Basketball Association. I love the NBA. But what was beautiful about it, too, the NBA Guide, you got like hands-on testimony about legendary players who made the contributions to the sport, to the league, who were the pioneers of the NBA. And so you had this great sense of history right in the palm of your hand. See, there's nothing better than an account written or spoken in real time as history, moves forward. And where there's no angles, there's no narratives, the history is there for you to understand what took place prior to you being introduced to that situation, and you started to follow that situation and you became a fan, in the case of sports, right? So what I'm getting at is This is how we learned about Will Chamberlain. This is how we learned about Jerry West. This is how we learned about Oscar Robertson. This is how we learned about Nate Thurman. This is how we learned about Bob Pettit. This is how we learned about Bob Cousy, Paul Arizin, Joe Fulks. This is how we learned about them legendary players, the Bob Cousy's, the Sam Jones. This is where we learned how Boston became a dynasty in the 60s. And see, the way they had it set up too, what you come away with is the reality that even though there's changes that have been made to the game, in essence, the game still remains the same. So when you look at a team's record, let's say from 1966, and then you look at a team's record or the champion 20 years later in 1986, there's really no difference in the grand scheme of things because of the context in which their history was presented. That's why the NBA set itself up for the greatest success that it ever had, or what became known as the golden era of the NBA during the 80s and during the rise of one Michael Jordan. See, they upheld the history, man. Now, in the midst of that, yes, you had great rivalries, Bill Russell versus Will Chamberlain and whatnot. You know, battle between great teams, Boston Celtics, Los Angeles Lakers, Boston Celtics, Philadelphia 76ers, LA Lakers, New York Knicks, Milwaukee Bucks, Los Angeles Lakers. You had so many great rivalries, you know, Philadelphia Warriors versus the Boston Celtics, and the St. Louis Hawks, Boston Celtics. So what I'm saying is, man, this is how the league was able to keep moving forward and building on the point of origin from the late 40s, right? And then during the 50s, it established itself as a long-standing professional sports league. And then the 60s, you know, we were witness to the league's first dynasty that lasted for a period of a decade in the Boston Celtics, right? So I'm trying to set the stage for the difference in how the NBA was covered then versus now. And see, what's happening now is, you know, and I think the motivation behind this is because certain players who want to criticize Michael Jordan, ultimately, they realized they didn't reach their potential as players, right? They had all the talent, but they didn't reach their potential. So I think what happens is, man, Michael Jordan raised the bar so high because he built on what preceded him, because he respected the history of the game. So therefore, to achieve what he wanted, as he used to always say, I want to excel at a higher level and achieve what Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson couldn't do, and winning, back-to-back championships, or 3 championships in a row, or 3-peat. So what I'm saying is, man, and even if you're not a fan of these Chicago Bulls, like Michael Jordan may not be your favorite player, but you understand what he meant to the sport of basketball and to this league, and what he achieved was second to none. So when you got people who follow the precedent 30 years later and try to diminish a man's accomplishments, man, that's an insult. That's an insult to the sport. You see, now recently, a couple weeks ago, and I'm a fan of this guy. I'm a fan of this cat, Rasheed Wallace. You know, both he and Michael Jordan alma mater is North Carolina Tar Heels, right? So you would think that Rasheed Wallace would speak highly of Jordan's accomplishments. But he makes this statement out of nowhere saying that Michael Jordan, basically saying he didn't play defense. And when you hear that, man, and the thing about it is, when you watch that man play, before all these pundits started appearing out of nowhere, when you watch this man play and you recall and remember what he did. Let me put it this way. As Jordan became the top product endorser in sport, he had to project a certain image, right? And that's just good business, as the NBA was trying to elevate itself to eventual global, a global following, right? So Jordan had to project a certain image. But if you remember how he played, you said to yourself, there's no way in the world that's who he is. It is not a knock. It's actually paying respect to his approach to the game on the court. So what I'm trying to say is, when someone makes a statement about an athlete who retired 20 years ago, and then the period of his career that's in question now, that's being distorted and crapped on, trashed on, you remember that this was the first player in league history to garner 200 steals and 100 blocks in the same season. And he did it 2 years in a row, and he had multiple seasons where he averaged over 3 steals a game. And along with that, he began his run of leading the league in scoring points per game for 7 years straight, before he retired in 1993. And then when he returned back, his next full 3 seasons, he led the league in scoring 3 more times, back to back to back. So we talking about a 10-time league scoring champion, coupled with being the first player to ever record 200 steals and 100 blocks in the same season. That's insane. And to be a 2 guard to achieve that. And there's been a lot of great defensive 2 guards in the league, in the NBA. So when you hear someone say that, man, now it's getting to the point, man, where, I start picking up on when all this started, man, because it really started, the beginning, the origins of this. The seeds were planted in 2011. And then they said, someone out there said, okay, we are going to attempt to downgrade Michael Jordan's career and accomplishments and eventually try to erase him from history. That's what they're trying to do. And I started picking up on this around 2016, where I would read articles by, sports columnists and whatnot. Maybe not as prominent nationally, or as far as like on syndication or whatnot. But I was reading articles, man, and I would, come across articles saying, well, Michael Jordan averaged 27 points a game for his career in the playoffs. I said, whoa. That ain't right. Michael Jordan averaged something like 33.4 points a game. This was during his first run from 1984 to 1993 before he retired. And to this day, he holds the record in regular season, postseason, and finals for the highest point per game during that particular juncture of the season. Now, and also in 1988, he ran the table as far as what an individual can achieve in basketball within the concept of team play. He led the league in scoring. If I'm not mistaken, he led the league in steals. Second straight season of gaining 200 steals and 100 blocks in the same season. Won league MVP, defensive player of the year, all-star game MVP. He won everything that you could think of. So if you win defensive player of the year, how are you not playing no defense? According to the logic of what was said a couple weeks ago. It don't make no sense. Now, once he got older, doing his second run with the Chicago Bulls. I don't want to say second run. I want to make it seem like he jumped from team to team. But let's just say when he returned back from retirement the first time. And see, this is the thing too. This is the thing. This is where having an opportunity to read commentary. See, reading is different, and it's a different. How can I say? It's a different type of stimuli than constantly tuning in, watching someone talk sports, whatever it is that you enjoy following. And you got to rely on what's being said by individuals, right? Which often turns into narratives. But when someone takes the time, especially when it comes to sports, and to write a book about a player or a team, best believe they've been taking down notes way beyond the time that these pundits set aside to watch and cover basketball on a game-by-game basis. It's a guarantee. So the commentary back then was spot on, right? It was spot on because it was centered around the expectations of that player based on what they achieved that season going to the future moving forward. So, see, as a basketball fan, man, this is all very insulting because they may think that their platform, man, is how can I say this? A lot of people using a platform in a way that undermines the potential of what they could be using their platform for. See, if you're not going, like I said, it's not about predictions because we all get, about a game or a championship game. We all make wrong predictions. It ain't even about predictions. It's about if this is what you choose to do, you have to be objective. You have to be factual. Because what you witness eventually becomes history down the line. So if you try to distort it in real time, well, the years and the decades that follow is going to generate even greater levels of cynicism about what was being written about. This is why you have to be honest with the people. And what I'm trying to say is, man, we all have our favorite players. I get that. No issue. There's no issue having, back and forth debate, a passionate debate about who they think is the better player or whatnot. But if you notice, in an actual real debate where there's no narratives, when we see fans have difference of opinion about who's better, but how can I say? Some of the debate is fun. It's fun. But it's only fun when you uphold the history of what it is that you're debating about. But when you try to do that by applying narratives, that's when things get bogged down. And that's what's happening now. This is what's leading a player who faced Jordan or played against Jordan probably once or two times during his prime versus Jordan beyond his prime during his years in Washington. So quite naturally, by him being older, because he was 39 or 40 years old, well, of course, he ain't gonna play defense with the same in the same prolific nature that he did during his prime. That goes for any athlete in any sport. Your performance should not be the same approaching the year of 40, especially in a situation where you help generate the outcome of a contest when it comes to basketball by being the best two-way player in your sport when you play in your prime. What I'm trying to say is, throughout this man's career, I saw a lot of games, man, where he went up against some of the outside of himself. He went up against some of the greatest players at his position. He was so great on defense that the other star player he was guarding, he would hold them to 6 to 8 points less than what they averaged throughout the course of the season. And while he's holding his defensive assignment or the player who he's assigned to guard to 6 to 8 points less than what they normally average, he was still scoring over 30 points. See, we've seen a lot of situations where, a player's asked to defend an opposing player throughout the course of the game, throughout the course of the series, to where it may affect their offense. Because they expounded so much energy on both sides of the court, right? That's called the attrition. But this guy was so great. Michael Jordan was so freaking great that he can shut you down. Because essentially, if you're guarding a player and you're holding him to 6 to 8 points less than what they normally score, that means for all practical purposes, you locked them down. Because more than likely, you locked them down during the stage of the game where everything was in question. And they didn't really start scoring until late in the game when it's already been decided. To make their stats look better than what it really was. So what I'm trying to say is this. Michael Jordan was so great on the defensive end. That determination, and I'm not trying to jock nobody. It ain't about jocking, man. It's about, when you paint these narratives, when you try to bring a player down, you're lowering the bar because you're doing it for a reason. You just ain't doing it just on a humbug, just be out there talking. It's being done for a reason. So when you distort the history by trashing the past, you're lowering the bar. You're not raising the bar. Because when you're raising the bar, you upholding that which preceded you. That's how the bar is maintained or even elevated. Michael Jordan had to respect history to elevate the bar as he became the first superstar who led his team to 3 straight championships since Bill Russell. If you'd had an attitude that he was already greater than what he would have to prove throughout his career, chances are he don't even win back to back. Most definitely, he don't win 2 3-peats. Right? He may not even have the one championship. See, this is all about rank and file. It's all about paying your dues. So when they said Michael Jordan, oh man, he didn't win every year. Well, no basketball players ever won every year. Bill Russell didn't win a championship every year. Magic, Bird, Kareem, Duncan, nobody has won every year. That's not even a logical argument. But the thing about it is, when they try to downplay Jordan and say, well, he didn't win until this guy came on the team. Well, now what you're telling me is that a fan or a group of fans have grown accustomed to watching superstars take shortcuts. See, that's where everything gets distorted. So before, when Jordan was leading his team to the first round, the first 3 seasons of his career, people were saying, well, how is he doing it? How is he leading the Chicago Bulls team to the playoffs without a bona fide number 2 player? When the East was the beast, or they say the beast of the East. But now, in a revisionist point of view, trying to distort history, now he's being degraded because he had to go up against an all-time championship level team in the first round in the Boston Celtics, who won 67 games. Then he had to go up against them again in year 3 with Boston as the defending champion, and Bird coming off his 3rd straight league MVP. In his rookie season, he had to go up against the 59-23 Milwaukee Bucks. You stick any superstar that was drafted by a losing team, from Shaquille O'Neal to Derek Coleman to Larry Johnson to Alonzo Mourning to LeBron James to Ralph Sampson to Brad Daugherty to Grant Hill, Penny Hardaway. Anybody who's come down the pike since, Giannis, Kyrie. You could take any of them and put them in that same situation. They not beat Milwaukee Bucks in the first round either. On a team that the previous year before he got there won something like 27, 28 games. It's not going to happen. So they try to attack this man from all angles, man. And the thing about it, man, it's not producing anything good. All it's causing is chaos because it's not true what they saying anyway. Think about it. This is, like I said, his teammates that he had on the Bulls starting out, they was NBA level players, right? But they were not the type of players that can support Jordan in building towards a championship front. That's not what he had starting off, right? So think about it. He had to score in his 3rd year 37 points a game and record 200 blocks and 100 steals. Well, 200 steals and 100 blocks in the same season, just so the Bulls can win 40 games to make the playoffs. So now, if you think about it, now his first 2 years, now he played defense, but how can I put this? His 3rd year in the league, he had less talent around him in his 3rd season than he had his first 2 years. So therefore, for the Bulls to be competitive, just to reach 500 and make the playoffs, he had to excel at both ends of the court, where he would be considered as Defensive Player of the Year. This before Scottie Pippen came. So the example that Jordan set on defense, well, Scottie Pippen emulated that effort, and he became a great defender in his own right. And that's why when you look at it from an accurate historical point of view, Scottie Pippen became an extension of Michael Jordan's greatness. See, what I'm trying to say, Scottie Pippen, man, he was the best number 2 player in the world playing alongside Michael Jordan. He was an extension of Jordan. So it got to the point, man, where like, you know, when Pippen matured as a player, and then finally, you know, overcoming his ineffectiveness against Detroit. Well, once Detroit saw Pippen elevate his game playing alongside Jordan, they knew it was a wrap. They knew it was a wrap. Because Joe Dumars made a comment saying, well, when Jordan found out he could trust his teammates, well, we knew we weren't going to beat them then. See, that's what I'm saying, man. When you go by firsthand accounts, man, you can take these narratives, man, you can kick them narratives to the curb. Because the narratives don't mean nothing, because they change like the wind, man. Like night and day. But the history is always there, man. And it's recorded on tape. And a lot of people back then, man, they wrote books, articles, man. And that's how you get a fair shape and a fair assessment as to how great a player was. So in closing, man, what they're doing, trying to rewrite history and erase Michael Jordan, see, they not just trying to diminish him, they trying to erase him. That's what they trying to do. Now, the thing about it is it's not going to work. It's just very frustrating to see, because they talk more about Jordan and what happened in the past than current basketball events. This is why they got thrown off guard by OKC and Minnesota balling the way they are this year. They got thrown off guard. They got thrown off guard last year with Denver. They didn't take Denver serious until Denver proved and showed they was going to run the table and was the dominant team in the playoffs in the West. But see, those people who covered the NBA back then, they weren't thrown off guard, because they covered all the teams, man. They kept up with all the teams. But you can't come out there and say, man, this man didn't play no defense, man. I seen Jordan shut people down. Now, the difference between the way Jordan defended and Pippen was more like, you know, trying to cut off the initial point of attack, point guards, right? As Jordan got older, coming back from his first retirement, you know, he really had to preserve his energy for offense, you know, because for all practical purposes, the second 3P Bulls all around was probably not as talented as the first 3P. When you really, you know, pull back the scales and look at the, you know, player for player, you know. But what I'm trying to say is this, man. Maybe it'd be better if they just stopped talking about the past at all. But see, the thing about it is they're not going to do it, man. They're not going to do it. And what's sad about it, whatever's motivating them to do this, man, it's not a worthy cause. And it's putting them in a bad light, because more and more basketball fans who do respect the game, do respect the history of the game, they're getting tired of it, man. Because you don't see this take place in baseball or football or hockey. You don't see it take place. It's only in the NBA. It's because they try to push someone to the top and try to erase this man from the history books. That's crazy. And it's coming from all sides. It's coming from, I mean, you know, every day someone out there saying something whack. And like I said, man, I'm a fan of Rasheed, man. He coined one of the most famous phrases in NBA history. Ball don't lie. But you cannot diminish a player's contribution to this game, man. You can't do that, man. You can't come out there and say, well, Jordan didn't play no defense. You can't do that. I seen him lock Penny Hardaway down in the playoffs. I seen him lock down Reggie Miller in the playoffs. I seen him lock down prime Vince Carter in the fourth quarter, shut him down. I seen him lock down, put the clamps on prime Paul Pierce, where Jordan was like, shit, Paul Pierce had to be at that time Jordan was 40. So Jordan was 15 years his senior, putting the clamps on. So it's just getting out of hand, man. It's getting old and played out. You know, every day it's someone out there, man. They just throwing stuff out there, man. You know, hoping and see what they're trying to do. When they make these statements, man, they're not trying to appeal to the basketball fans who grew up watching, you know, the Michael Jordans of the world. They're trying to appeal to the lowest common denominator. It's not saying one generation of fans better than the next. That's not what it is. It's like basketball fans who grew up in the 70s, in the 60s. Well, they witnessed those players. That me personally, I wasn't either born or too young to be able to understand and follow basketball. So I listen to what they say. How can I sit there and challenge them and they grew up actually watching it? You know what I mean? So I'm going to shut this down, man. Like I said, at the end of the day, Michael Jordan's career in the NBA is second to none. When I mean second to none, I mean second to none. At the end of the day, and there is nothing that they can do to change it. No matter what they try to do, what they try to say, who they try to fool and mislead. In the end, it's not going to work. So I just want to drop that nugget. Until next time, this is JB for BTB, Behind the Bench.